Hey guys, and welcome back to the Making Spirituality Real podcast. So today we are continuing the theme from the last episode. We're going to be reading more of Parashara Horashastra. Last year we covered the important bits of chapter 1 that were talking about the nature of the universe, divinity, and creation. I don't actually remember, every precise chapter, knowing what's in each one, so, it's a bit of a surprise to me what we will find today in the next chapters. I'm not going to do all of them, only the ones that I find to be interesting and relevant for the for like an average person to learn about from a spiritual perspective. I would say that honestly chapter 2 is kind of, so far from what I'm seeing, the continuation of chapter 1, where it touches more on, again, the nature of creation, where they kind of treat the universe like this living, thinking entity and being, which it is, as per the Hermetic principles, which I guess I could also cover one day. But that's a topic for a whole another episode. But here we have an interesting name where the universe is called the Unborn Lord. It's kind of like the full entire unit, the unformed greatness. And then there's an interesting phrase here that says, he has incarnated as the planets to bestow on the living beings as a result due to their karmas. But then again, as people, we are also part of the universe, so we have kind of created the karmas. So it's interesting how what this is basically saying is that planets are living beings that breathe with the force of the universe to deliver the right energetic push to people to create certain results. So I guess what's really being emphasized here is the living sentient conscious nature of what we feel from the perspective of our science, our dead rocks in space. Well, no, they're living aspects of God. It's kind of, continuing from the premise of the previous chapter. But it's very interesting that the ancients had this interesting of the universe, that they viewed planets as living entities whose job is to deliver the right energetic push to create the desired results, which is totally what I believe in also. But, it's, again, the wisdom that we lack in a modern society. So basically the planet is called an immortal being. It's also interesting that certain, I don't know why only certain planets are being given animal equivalents. Like here, I already heard about this one before, that Saturn is called a tortoise with a hard shell. Rahu is called a pig, which is interesting. It's the first time I've heard of this one. And Ketu is called the fish. See, the one thing I can tell you, because I already read forward, so you will see, is that people used to view those animal symbols very from a deeper spiritual perspective. So because something has a symbol of a fish, it's going to have a certain nature to it, same as the symbol of the pig or the symbol of a tortoise. So it's like we might think that it's very mundane for us, but these small animals that we observe in our daily life nowadays, they are just kind of smaller representation of a greater planetary energy. But that could be interesting, for remediation. Let's say that you have problems with your Ketu, probably you should get a fish aquarium, or that you have problems with Rahu, maybe you should avoid eating pork since there is a pig, or you should get a pet pig, like a small pet pig. Like in those Japanese pig cafes. People say it stinks, but hey, Rahu is a malefic, right? And maybe if your Saturn is struggling, you should get like a pet turtle, a pet tortoise. I heard that they stink too, actually. But, it could like improve struggling Saturn or something, to have an avatar of Saturn in your home. So it's very interesting how these animals seem to be like a trickle down of a larger energy. And the contradiction of Rahu, because people say, oh, pigs are dirty, but pigs actually are very clean animals. And they're pretty healthy. There is the element of greed, but they're actually, the animal is actually pretty chill by itself. So it's funny. And also, I'm thinking about how Ketu represents fish. They say that fish only have 5 seconds of memory. Fish are very instinctive beings. They're completely submerged and going with the flow, but they have no mental capacities. They are completely led by impulse. And isn't that how Ketu works, actually, right? This is what Ketu does. It is surrendered and submerged, but not capable of cognition. So I think that's very, very interesting. And also able to endure a lot of high pressure some of the fish live in the depths of the oceans. The issue here is that some of the names in this text have not been translated, and I can't help but feel like there's some more depth to it, because the author kind of quotes some of these names in directly as a romanization from Sanskrit, and as a result, we have names like Jivat Mamsha, which I have no idea what that is. It seems to be some sort of determinism between a higher and lower class spirituality, where Paramatmamsha is the divine nature and Jivat Mamsha is the mortal nature. This book touches on the creation. It's interesting that this book kind of touches on the idea of creation of mortality and immortality, that there seems to be a very distinctive separation point where at some point the form of life moves on from immortal to mortal. And as far as mortality of beings, it seems that the immortal beings sometimes use mortal forms, saying that, for example, Sun, which is an immortal being, as a celestial object incarnated as Lord Rama and Lord Krishna, which were mortal beings. So it's interesting that the immortal forms take form mortal shapes, sometimes for their own expansion and curiosity, I'm guessing. Yeah, they call it here the mission, that they do it for a specific purpose. Exactly, after completing the mission, the higher aspects, so the Paramatmamsha of the respective grahas and planets, they merge into the planets. So if Lord Rama and Lord Krishna, which by the way are kind of like saints in the Hindu culture, so let's say that they are incarnation of the sun itself. So after having completed their mission as a mortal being, their essence goes back into the sun. And it's the same with human life, apparently, that, we are a mix of all the planetary energies, and we live lives according to our karmas, whatever that is, and then we again merge into the planets. Interesting. So it's kind of like we all are built as human beings from particles of cosmic dust blended into a human form, a unique human form, a unique planetary form, which I guess our charts describe. And then it makes actually a very firm statement about the nature of death, that after death we turn back into dust, and the dust returns to its respective planets. So the particles of us that belong to the sun go to the sun, the particles that belong to the moon go to the moon, the particles that belong to Jupiter go back to Jupiter. So it's kind of like cosmic recycling, which is something that I've been saying before about the nature of reincarnation and its real implications. And here it's said very straightforwardly. So not only here we have the nature of creation, but the nature of death and rebirth. Simple sentence, so much information. But it's also very interesting how this text prioritizes kind of the existence of planets in our solar system, which I guess makes sense because we do live in the solar system. So the physical human body does belong within the confines of this solar system. If we wanted to go beyond, I guess we would find beings from completely different dimensional perspectives. So in a way, it's very funny how this book is very broad, but it's limited. It's like the planets, the life with the planets, the human life with the planets here is a very high concentration. Like right now in our society, we have a lot of focus on like AI, extraterrestrial contact. But quite frankly, I think that for us to look at a difference in life forms, we would have to go outside of our galaxy to escape the whole limitation of forming into human dust and returning to dust after death, to be grappled back by the planetary energies. Because here in the Milky Way, we seem to be just emulating the solar system endlessly on a loop, while of course I'm sure there is a whole other depth and richness of other dimensional life out there. Yeah, there you go. At the time of Great Destruction, so it's kind of like the reverse of the Big Bang, what they call the Great Destruction, the grahas with the planets merge in the Lord Vishnu, because like I said in the last episode, Lord Vishnu is what they call the universe. He's actually what they believe to be the supreme god that can evolve into destruction or creation. So it's interesting that the planets kind of seem to be on the same cycle as human beings, and the same as human beings are dispersed from the planets to exercise their karmas, the planets themselves seem to be dispersed from Lord Vishnu, as in the divine essence of living itself. And the planets at the time of great destruction will also return to source, the Lord. But here I'm guessing that the Lord Vishnu is the Lord of just this galaxy, and the universe is infinitely more broad than that, which is very interesting. Okay. One who knows of all these will become versed in the knowledge of the past, present, and future. Why, thank you. Without the knowledge of astrology, this cannot be known. Yeah, that makes sense. Basically, they're saying that this knowledge actually shows you that with this understanding, you now have a complete vision of greater principles and schemes and predictions of the direction and nature of the universe, which you're welcome for me giving that to you. But yeah, it's interesting that they say without knowledge of astrology, this cannot be known, because you have to be able to understand that you come from the planets, and then planets come from some universal source, and that then you return to them, so we are infinitely connected with our narrow cosmos here. And then that connection goes to something higher. So it's definitely very interesting. Hence, everyone should have a knowledge of astrology. I agree. That's why I'm doing this podcast. Particularly the Brahmin, which is the priest. Well, particularly those who are involved in spiritual matters should know astrology, which I agree. One who, devoid of astrological knowledge, believes this science will go to hell, called Raurava, and will be reborn blind. Well, that's very interesting, because I don't know what Raurava is. It's the name for their hell. But this is interesting. It says that those who preach spiritual teachings that are somehow corrupt without acknowledging the truth of astrology suffer a certain form of reincarnation where they are forced to open their eyes spiritually. So that's definitely very, very fascinating. Maybe that can be related to a form of priesthood that is more dogmatic or sect-like in nature, you know. So basically, if you are trying to teach about spirit without the notion of actual enlightenment and the nature of the universe, and your teachings are corrupt and incomplete, then apparently the universe plans to put you through certain hellish ordeals. Well, I feel bad for many Catholic priests. Interesting. I don't know how literally you should treat this, but you know, this book contains so much wisdom that, quite frankly, it could be like some sort of a spiritual recipe from the universe that shows that people who become preachers without acknowledging, again, the physical and spiritual nature of the universe itself will then suffer some sort of punishment for the sake of not really just making them hurt, but for the sake of maybe being spiritually upgraded in the next incarnation. Because you know these people, the zealots, who kind of use spiritual teachings not for their own fascination with learning about the nature of the universe, like you see me nerding out here, and there are plenty of others like me, but those who without understanding the gravity of their teachings just look for attention from the masses, and don't actually study anything, don't have any actual knowledge or you desire to acquire knowledge. And they're again affiliated with many religions. So apparently, there's a certain destiny for them spiritually, for the sake of preventing further corruption and actually pushing them into real solid enlightenment. Anyway, before I even noticed, chapter 2 has come to a close, and while I'm recording here, I'm up to 60 minutes. I guess after the editing it's gonna be slightly less, but this has become longer than I expected. And there is more information here also than expected, because I actually did cover chapters 1 and 2 completely. I thought I was going to skip more, but I didn't. I guess we will see next time if chapter 3 has equal relevance. I'm not even looking at that now. I'm not going to force myself to do all chapters if they don't all have relevance, but so far it has definitely been very interesting when it comes to interpretation from a spiritual standpoint. And, it has been really, really fascinating. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and I'm looking forward to the next episode, and I hope that so are you. Bye-bye.